Okay, welcome to another episode of the Immigrant Education Collaborative Podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. I have Jason Liu. Jason, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great today. What about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time out to do this interview with me. I've been looking forward to it. Um, so tell us, man, let's get straight into it. Tell us about, growing up in Detroit, and your parents who themselves didn't go through the K through 12 system. What was the education experience like for you going through the American education system
Yeah,
with parents who are immigrants?
yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
So I was born in suburban Michigan,
Hmm.
southeast Michigan near Detroit. My
Hmm.
brother's 2 years younger than me. My mom immigrated from outside of Shanghai,
Hmm.
growing up, and she made it to the States as a college student. And
Hmm.
my dad was actually born in Columbus, Ohio, and
Mm.
his parents immigrated from Taiwan, and I think the late after the war, and my dad went through high school in the public school system, and then he ended up at the Ohio State University, and then my mom also went to college at OSU, and then they met later on in Michigan.
Hmm.
So I have like the first gen immigrant side
Hmm.
in that experience, and I also have the kind of growing up like the more standard American style of parent, I guess, if you
Yeah,
will. And so
gotcha.
that has mixed together growing up. So it makes for a very interesting dynamic that I'll talk about more.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
So tell us, like, as you're, I know you'll get into your story. You'll tell us about,
Sure,
going
yeah.
back and forth, but talk about the early years of going to school. Especially like with your mom parenting style, because your dad actually experienced the education system in America,
Yeah.
K through 12, but your mom didn't. So what was that like? What was that dichotomy like?
For sure, yeah. It's complex. I mean, parsing through it, looking back at it,
Yeah.
because my earliest memory was in kindergarten when my parents picked up and moved us from Michigan to Shanghai because my dad worked for GM at the time because Detroit's a motor city.
Mm-hmm.
And they took a 3 year assignment, and I was put in international school. I just remember like the first day of school, they introduced me in front of all the kids. And I was like kicking and screaming because I was like, yeah, kindergarten, you don't know any better. You're just traumatized. Like you're in
Right, right.
a new situation and your entire life's changed. And I think my parents early on, I think there is that kind of model minority, kind of the Asian, like there are certain fields of study. You can only be a doctor, engineer, lawyer type of person. You can only pursue those things. But
Mm-hmm.
I think my parents were also like they also nurtured a lot of other interests, and they exposed me to a lot of different things, whether it was just being abroad or it was just different sports or different like instruments or different like drawing, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to kind of show me like a lot of different parts of the world and what I could be and the person I could be growing up, and that's something that I'm very lucky to have, and that obviously shaped who I am today.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. So those experiences, especially, living abroad that early, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? You hear these stories, someone like Kobe, I know you're a basketball enthusiast,
Yeah,
you
for
like you
sure.
go abroad and then, but you're kind of
Italy,
going,
yeah.
yeah, you're going, to China where your mom is from. So
Mhm.
how was, were there family around that you sort of connected with when you were going to the international school during
Yeah,
those
we
times?
had my mom's side, her extended family was and lived outside of Shanghai, and because it's Shanghai is on the east coast of China, and the province around it is called Jiangsu province, and that's where my mom's side of the family's from.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually would see them a decent amount, and I think for me, I just remember like with my cousin, we he had one of those early like he had the Game Boy. We played Pokemon. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's 2 3 years older than me. I forget now, but.
Yeah.
It was really fun to be exposed to that side. But I think the biggest what always like made it feel weird was like we moved back after 3 years because I moved back in third grade to
Mm-hmm.
go to school back in Michigan because their assignment ended, and we wouldn't see them.
Right.
And maybe then 3 years later I moved back to Shanghai, and
Right.
again it just repeats. It was a very huge change.
Yeah. So how did you handle that though? I mean, because you're still a kid, so it's like every 3 years you're going back and forth from China back to Michigan. So how was that as you're developing? How did you, how did you handle that? Because you have to adjust to the friends, right? Even
Yeah.
though,
It's like I don't know. I think for me, I just got used to like the 3 year timeline on life. I know I'm sure people can relate to be moving around a lot growing up.
right, right.
First year you're new. You sit alone at lunch. You
Hmm.
That's what I did. Like I had to make new friends and like
Right.
a lot of you go you try to like break into existing cliques, so you try to figure out the dynamic and like try
Hmm.
to like at least assimilate or blend in a little bit. And then the
Right.
second year comes along, you start making friends, you start getting involved. For me, it was basketball early on. It was just I
Yeah.
played basketball a lot, and in elementary and middle school, I played a lot, and it was what helped me make friends both in Shanghai and Michigan.
Yeah.
And and that third year is like when those friendships kind of like realize themselves, when you really feel comfortable, you feel like you belong. And for me, like midway through eighth grade, midway through fifth grade, my
Yeah.
parents sat me down and they're like, "We're going back." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh no." I was just getting started, man. And I
Right.
guess I got accustomed to it. And, it's
Yeah.
instability is weird, man. It's weird. It'll play tricks on you.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you're talking, right, it made me think of like other families who go through a similar thing, right?
Yeah,
So
for
so like
sure.
like military families,
Yes.
they go through that. But then also I think about like professional athletes, right, who get
Yeah,
traded from, team to team and
for
they have
sure.
children and the kids have to,
Yeah. Oh,
have to adjust, right?
that's true because you're on a
Yeah.
1, 2 year, 3 year contract and
Yeah.
you never know what could happen. And
Yeah.
your whole life you gotta move. And I've related to a lot of people growing up, especially here in DC, because I live in DC now. People are
Yeah.
moved around a lot. They have
Yeah.
different backgrounds, and it's cool to like compare notes and like compare backgrounds and be like, oh, this is I felt the same way.
Hmm.
Even if they were obviously in a different part of the world or even in the States or outside of the States, like I think later on it's helped me, but I think I was bitter about it for a while just
Yeah. Yeah.
because I didn't have the continuity.
But I think so now when you look back on it, you see that like you built up a lot of resilience and a lot of great memories from that experience, right? Because, you didn't have just a smooth, just stay in one place all the way through,
Yeah.
so how do you reflect on that piece?
It's I think it's cool when you find people that have a similar experience. I think I was at some meetup like a few months ago and everyone we had laptops out and people were like working on stuff, but I see someone across the table has a laptop sticker, and I
Hmm.
recognize the laptop sticker because it was an international school honor band that I
Hmm.
participated in eighth grade. You had to audition for it, and
Right.
it was AMIS, like
Yeah.
Asian something something. I forgot what the
Yeah.
actual acronym was called, but I instantly recognized it. We played it was a middle school band. I go up to him and I ask, like, "Oh, dude, cool sticker. Like, where'd you get it from?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, like I played in Ami and like when I was in middle school." And I was like, "Wait, which middle school did you go to?" And he said, "Oh, I went to Shanghai American School."
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait, I went to I went to the same middle school."
Yeah.
It was like, "Wait, I was class of 2018." And I was like, "Wait, I was class of 2017." And turns out we had like 30 mutual friends. And I
Yeah.
think for the next hour, it was just like a time capsule. We're like
Yeah.
we were reopening a time capsule, talking about all the middle school drama, what
Yeah.
we used to do, like all the memories. And he was like, "Wow, it's kind of crazy. Like I don't
Yeah.
get to talk about this with anybody." And I was like, "Yeah, I feel the same way because the people I still keep in touch with, I have kind of moved apart, and I haven't really gotten to catch up to them about like what was it like in middle school in Shanghai and."
Yeah.
And now it's like I have somebody if I ever really want to talk about like stuff like it's really cool to know that people have experienced the same thing even though it's wouldn't say it's the most common kind of experience.
Yeah. But that's really cool though. And
Yeah,
it was precipitated by just seeing the sticker and being like, hey,
yeah,
I
that
know
it's
that.
just, you never know. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. So talk to us about, did you do your entire high school in America or you were still back and
Yes.
forth? You did.
I I'm I moved, yeah, I moved in ninth grade. And
Okay.
so for my freshman year, I was put back into high school, 560 kids, Northville High School,
Hmm.
huge public school system.
Yeah.
I think it was really hard because they were combining two middle schools. They were friend groups, and the freshman class was massive. And I
Right.
I think my brother had it easier because he moved in seventh grade, so he had time to like
Right.
get adjusted to the States, make some friends, and then go into high school.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that first day that like auditorium hall, like
Yeah.
everyone in that same the entire class, and everyone was looking around with their group of 5, 6 people, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, holy,
Yeah.
holy, oh man, I'm in. This is the real deal. And I was like, man, I sat alone at lunch that first year, and it was
Yeah.
just, I feel like I had to survive. And I still had some people I knew from elementary school, but it's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. High school is different, man. That ninth grade year is referred to as the freshman transition,
Right. Oh
which is
yeah.
a really tough, because you're transitioning also as as a teenager, right? Like
Yeah.
biologically you're transitioning, you're going into high school where it's almost like, soon I'll be an adult coming out of
Totally.
here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about your high school years. So you're in high school, you're transitioning that first year. It's rough because you guys just moved back in, into the country.
For
So like
sure.
academically, how are you doing? Socially, how are you doing? Are you playing basketball? Like what's happening as a ninth grader?
Yeah, oh, man, I tried to like make the basketball team in high school, but I got cut.
Yeah,
And that was one of those first things where I was like, wait, like I was able to make friends by playing basketball, being on the team in middle school and before, and now
yeah,
that didn't happen. And man, I was just trying to figure, I was like, man, that was a huge like dream that got shattered early on. And I think I had to figure out like what to do next from it
mhm,
and how to kind of pick myself up because you like orient your goals around like, oh, this is what I'm assuming this will happen to me and I'm working towards it. Have that taken
right.
away was really tough. And I did other extracurriculars like DECA, which is like a business club. And
Mm-hmm.
I think my parents like they were very much like you they had an eye towards like which colleges I wanted to go to and
Mm-hmm.
preparing me for that. So they were putting me through like the test prep SAT books
Mm-hmm.
and so I would go to class and I would do those practices. But at the same time I had like worked random jobs too because I my dad felt like it was important for me to get real experience. So I
Mm-hmm.
my first job was Toys R Us. I was a
Yeah,
sales associate.
yeah,
And my second job was at Chipotle. So I worked there part-time and
yeah.
it was dude, totally different world, obviously.
Right, right.
And at the same time doing like the like SAT, ACT prep and making sure grades were okay and
Yeah,
surviving in high school those first 2 years still. So
yeah.
it was, I wouldn't say I wasn't happy, but it was just, I felt like I just had to get it done.
So let me ask you this. Your dad grew up in Columbus, essentially, went
Yeah,
to D Ohio State University.
for sure. Yeah.
Um, so, and then now you guys are in Michigan, right? So did you have any family in Michigan? Like what sort of community, like support system did you have in Michigan? Like did you guys were you part of like a larger Asian community that went to church or hung out with?
We had some, yeah. I think my
Yeah,
parents were never fully entrenched in that
yeah,
kind of Asian bubble, and especially there's a huge Chinese American population and community in Metro Detroit, and they were kind of half in, half out. And I think me too. We had extended family from my dad's side all over Michigan and Ohio, and so
okay.
I always remember like looking forward to going down to Columbus and going for Thanksgiving with
Mm,
my grandparents on my dad's side. So we would always go down, drive 4 hours, and spend time there, and then
yeah,
back up. And that was, I think, kind of stabilizing for me. Like it's just knowing that we had that
yeah,
routine, having that, especially as kids, I think
yeah,
that was really important.
yeah. Okay. So you talked about, your parents starting to prepare you for the SATs. Like when did that start? How early did you start preparing for the SATs?
Oh man, I did a SAT between my freshman and my sophomore year, and
Okay.
I did so bad. Like I hated it. I was like,
Yeah.
why am I here, man? Like it's also like a 5 hour test or something. It takes a long time,
It's
and
grueling.
including they had the essay back then, and it was out of 2400, and I
Yeah.
so bad. And
Yeah.
my parents like, oh man, you work cut out for yourself. Because I'm like I can get by. I'm like a pretty smart kid, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
say I look smart.
Yeah.
So I really had to like grind and just like it just wasn't fun. I don't think it ever gets I don't think it ever gets better. Like
Yeah.
as someone when you want to go to college and you have to like test into those and take standardized tests, it takes time and it takes
Yeah.
energy and it some people have it, some people just don't. And the resources it takes, yeah. Time is
Yeah.
time is money, man.
So here's my follow-up question to that, right? So how was it knowing that, like your parents on one hand, like they want the best for you, right? They're trying
Yeah.
to prepare you, they're trying to expose you to different things. They want, they have a really good understanding of, okay, college is going to lead you to financial independence.
Sure.
Um, but at the same time, like you're a teenager, right?
Yeah.
So like are you buying into their vision for you at that point, or are you just like, like lay off me a little bit? Like how are you
Yeah.
dealing with this as a
Mm.
teenager?
It's I don't know, it's weird. Like I was a little rebellious, but I wasn't like fully. I think it was because again, I think we had like my mom was like a little bit of a helicopter parent growing up, but they also let me explore things on my own. They also
Hmm.
let me like try out if I wanted to play basketball or I wanted to try out soccer, they would let me do that. If I wanted to do art and I enjoyed doing it, they would kind of nurture that. So
Hmm.
it's somewhere in the middle. I know people can be they grow up and be super repressed and just kind of just lash out. Like I
Yeah.
think for me, it was like I knew I had a sense of duty and I knew it was something I knew I needed to do even though I
Hmm.
didn't really enjoy it.
Right.
But I think I think it was a balance where like I had my friends, some of my friends who had a Dodge Charger and they vaped, like they would take you they drive me around. I do a
Yeah.
little bit. I always come home at like
Yeah.
dinner time. Like
Right. Right.
we just so it was like a push pull.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my,
You're
my
you're
parents were on both sides
responsible.
of it. Yeah, my parents
Yeah.
were on both sides of it. So I
Yeah.
get
No, that's pretty cool, man. But and then also the other piece to this is that you're the older sibling, right? So part of
yeah,
it is that they're expecting you to kind of be a good example, set a
that's
good
true
example for
too.
your
For
younger
sure.
brother. So how did you handle that part of it? Were you
Yeah,
were you a good big brother?
I was decent. I think me and my brother we were close growing up because when you move back and forth, you really have each other, and so we end
Right.
up just doing the same things. And I think he would follow like what I would do, and I think later on he kind of developed his own identity and kind of was
Yeah.
like, oh, Jason like this, but I don't want to like it. So
Yeah.
his name is Jacob, so Jason and Jacob, like
Yeah.
the names are pretty close together, and we kind of look alike. So.
Yeah.
But I think he would just see. I think it was just like yeah, like knew I had to like kind of set an example, so I knew I couldn't goof off for too much, and then
Right.
then he would naturally just like follow because like I think because a little better, yeah.
Yeah. Coming back, I want to come back, circle back to high school, right? So you're talking about high school, you're doing the SATs, your parents
Yeah,
are exposing you to a lot of things. So talk about
sure.
music. Are you still playing an instrument in high school?
I played piano growing up until
Hmm.
elementary school, but I stopped doing that in middle school. I started playing clarinet in the drum set in
Hmm.
middle school, and I kept doing that through high school.
Okay. So were you in band in high school?
I was in an orchestra, a concert
Orchestra.
orchestra, so I played
Gotcha.
clarinet, and I was
Gotcha.
actually
Gotcha.
looking back, I don't think I didn't really enjoy it. Like but the thing is, I think playing the pieces and like being in an orchestra made me appreciate classical music. So I know
Hmm.
I know I'm not the type to like create music, but
Hmm.
I developed an appreciation for it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I would do yeah, I would just do like random extracurriculars and like I would do things like that.
And then talk about the art piece. Are you taking like art classes during high school, or are you just like drawing on your own? Like what are you doing art
Yeah,
wise?
so I grew up in Shanghai. I think one of the things I did in Shanghai was I took up drawing classes. I think they put me through, especially like very classically trained teacher with like classical training, like shading, still lifes, drawing like people. And I feel like I drew a lot of buildings. I think it was because as a kindergarten, I was exposed to the city, like Shanghai growing up in its kind of boomtown stages when China's economy was just emerging and skyscrapers were popping up left and right. I think that's something that I was really drawn to, and so that
Hmm.
would always make its way into my art. But I stopped doing it once I moved back to the States and for high school because the focus was really more on academics and
Hmm.
basketball and all these other things. So I didn't really have time to do it. But I think through these student clubs, like I ended up like taking photos or like making videos for people just towards junior and senior year, and I really liked it, and
Hmm.
and I didn't know it at the time, but I think it was like reigniting something that was deep down inside of me that I just didn't know I still wanted to do.
Yeah. No, this is really cool, Jason, because I'm seeing, having, spoken to you and but not knowing the full backstory.
For
Now I'm
sure,
kind of
yeah.
seeing like all these things that help to shape
Yeah,
you, right?
for
Which I think which
sure.
I think is really cool because what I'm recognizing is that you have like this foundational um support that's in place in terms of all these different disciplines that you were
Yeah,
exposed to, and you nurtured that that gift along the way, and it's all just building at the same time.
Yeah,
You know what I
totally.
mean? Yeah. So
Good
it's
point.
almost like your parents like subconsciously knew exactly what they were doing, right? They were just
Yeah.
building, they build you into the perfect steam engine, right? So hold on.
Unknowingly and
Yeah.
sometimes knowingly for sure.
Yeah, but hold on though. STEAM is just the acronym, right? So it's just the science, tech, engineering,
Oh, you mean
art.
STEM? Oh, you mean STEM?
Hmm.
Yeah,
No,
gotcha.
no,
Oh, I thought
not
you were-
STEM, STEAM, because the art is in there. So
oh,
we got to
okay.
put
I
the
didn't
A in
know that
there.
was part of it.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
we're putting the A in there. And they
That's cool.
actually did that because you started off,
Is that an
drawing,
academic term now? Like
yeah.
STEAM?
So they infused the A into STEM.
Oh,
So it's always been STEM, but then they had to put art in there. But
oh, that's cool.
your parents were actually ahead of the time.
Wow.
They were
Okay,
ahead of the
that's
curve,
cool.
yeah,
That's
right?
great. That's great. Yeah.
Because you have the art and you have the music in there,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. For
All
sure.
right.
Yeah.
So let's come back. So you're in high school,
Yeah.
11th grade, 12th grade, you're getting ready to leave high school. What are you thinking that you're gonna do? Where are you thinking about going to college, and what are you thinking about majoring, and how do you make those decisions?
I so I mentioned I did the business club in high
Mm-hmm.
school.
Yep.
I did really well at it, and it's mainly kind of like a pitch competition, or it's like how well you are able to deliver. Like my event was hospitality, so mine was delivering a sales pitch, and I what I really liked was designing the deck
Mm-hmm.
and the keynote aspect, the visuals. And I
Right.
didn't know it at the time, but that's something that would end up becoming something I do full time, which because I'm a graphic designer now. But I wanted to go to business school, and Michigan Ross was at the top of the list along with a bunch of different other schools. I think here, like, I think my parents they're cool. I think that, again, they were like, they knew they wanted me to go to a good school, but also they were very willing to let me explore different options and
Mm-hmm.
test the waters and see what I could do and throw out apps random left and right. Obviously, with the financial means to do it and to fund me through college with scholarships for certain schools,
Mm-hmm.
if possible. So I ended up going to USC, to the Marshall School of Business on a half ride scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
and went to the school of business, and I went into college wanting to do like consulting, finance, the usual tracks people tend to
Yeah.
pursue when they go to college. But it was it was in downtown LA, and so
Yeah.
I think when I got there, it was things changed pretty quickly.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit. So you're in high school.
Yeah.
Did you narrow it down? You said you were looking at Michigan, you're looking at USC. Like how did you narrow it down to USC?
I didn't get into the business school in Michigan. It's like a whole system where I think it's probably changed now, but Michigan Ross is you either directly get in or you take like you declare an econ major and you apply later. But
Yeah.
it was that or like Texas or Indiana
Yeah.
and Cornell, the hotel school I got in
Yeah.
because again, I worked for Toys R Us and Chipotle, and they were looking for they look for hospitality experience. So I
Yeah.
figured I would fit the app, and I just sent an app and I got in.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, guess I got into an Ivy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but USC was because it was in LA and I missed the city. I think that was a big reason. And the
Right.
national exposure, I think for me, I think part of me was comfortable around that and I wanted that back. Not that other colleges wouldn't have that, but USC especially.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drew me back to the West Coast. Not back
Yeah.
to the West Coast, yeah.
Okay. That's what's up, man. So when you got to USC, right? So
Yeah.
you arrive at USC, you're like, all right, I'm a Trojan. USC has like one of my favorite fight songs, by the way.
Oh, that's
It's yeah,
classic. Yeah.
yeah, man. It's an awesome fight song. My daughter and I we play that all the time.
Right on
But
for
so you get to USC.
yeah.
Did you in high school did you go and visit USC before you were accepted?
Yeah, we did, and
You
it
did?
was cool to see like down the main walkway, Truesdale Parkway.
Hmm.
You can see downtown LA, and I
Yeah,
think that kind of sold it a little bit, and
yeah,
to feel like you're at the center of the action, because some schools are in cities like out, but they're in the suburbs and the outskirts. I think to me, it felt like I was at the center of the world.
yeah. But that's pretty cool, man. And especially like you said, you missed the city, right?
For sure, yeah, yeah.
From all your experience in Shanghai. Okay, so you get to USC. How comfortable are you academically at USC? Are you like, okay, I'm good? Are you feeling like, hey, I should have done, things a
Yeah.
little bit differently in high school, or you feel like you're well prepared?
I think USC is a good school, but I don't think it's like really hard academically. It's well,
Hmm.
depending on the major, obviously, but for business, it's obviously a lot more soft skills.
Yeah.
And I think I got exposed to two things early on at USC. The first one is I joined like a 180 degrees consulting, which was like social impact management strategy consulting for nonprofits.
Hmm.
But through that, I learned about what nonprofits do, the big social issues that LA faces, like housing,
Hmm.
the environment, infrastructure, and something that I think really was interesting to me in a way that like normal business concepts like economics and finance weren't.
Yeah.
And the second one is that creatively, whether it was designing something as like a PowerPoint or even just seeing what other kids were doing on campus, whether it was their film students or that whether they had cameras and they were taking pictures, being a part of different clubs and seeing how creative people can get. I think that's the two things that exposed me to the kind of like it just opened a different world for me to see in college. And I think that's something I really like. I knew deep down that was pulling on me. Like I wanted to do something about that. I wanted to pursue that deeper because it's college. Like if you're able to, you should. That's when you pursue passions and you try to make
Right.
something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, no, I love that, man. So here's a question for you. What
Yeah.
inspires you? Right?
Um, what
What?
ins
Hold on. It's a three part. What inspires you? Who inspires you? And do you work to inspire others?
so I'm inspired by a lot of things.
Hmm.
I think in a format like these podcasts, I love hearing about people's stories because
Hmm.
you can always find yourself relating to different parts of someone's journey or what they
Hmm.
were thinking or what they were feeling or the obstacles they had to overcome. I when I was getting into the design world, I would listen to this guy named Chris Do, and he would talk about the business of design, and I think that really spoke to my like business school background on like, oh,
Hmm.
like how much should I charge for a logo or like
Yeah.
how do I break into freelance and get clients and like make a living out of it? And to me, like it gave me the like the tools and it put into words and the concepts that like this is what I needed to do to make it in the world of design. And I think that kind of felt really encouraging.
Yeah.
So um honestly, podcasts like these.
Do you work to inspire others?
I do, but I think I usually don't get asked for advice. I think I feel like I'm still young where I'm like still experiencing things
Hmm.
to feel like I'm willing and like I have the experience to share them. But I think for me, it's like I would say like it's a product of me being a very observant person growing up, just because I need to see like my environment around me to know how to like act. And I think I can pick up, I can observe things about people, and I can show them like, oh, you're doing this well, you should keep doing it. Or
Yeah.
I'm able to see that in other people, and
Hmm.
whether it's like at work and in the design world and my friends, like
Yeah.
I think that's something that I would say is a strength.
Yeah. So where do you think that comes from though?
It comes from like being an outsider in communities or in places that um I've grown up in because
Hmm.
like I would find myself in the out group and like you observe the in group to see like what people are doing, whether it's like clicks or like
Yeah.
when you're like it's like when you get to the basketball court and you're like the people are playing pickup, you like survey the court, you see like who's good and who's not,
Right,
and
right,
you'd be
right,
like
right.
I gotta look out for that. Yeah, stuff like that. So I had to do
Right,
that.
right, right. No, I love that, man, because I'm asking you these questions, and as you're telling me your story, I'm literally seeing like all the building blocks that
Yeah,
were just put in place to
for sure.
build you into, like the kind, self-assured, humble, yet comfortable person that you are. You know what I mean?
Oh, thanks. That's
Yeah.
that's very kind.
Yeah, so my question for you is like looking back on, going back and forth to Shanghai, like you said, being the outsider, but then also seeing that, like your parents were able to nurture you in a way and expose you to things that
Yeah.
really helped to shape you, including, working part-time at Chipotle and Toys R Us. Like all these experiences really helped to shape you. So like what do you think about that when you just reminisce on like all these things that you've done, all these experiences that you've had? And the
Yeah.
person that shaped you into.
I don't know, for the longest time I was just like kind of bitter. Like I was like, man, I wish I had like a conventional childhood and like I had a friend group, and like I wish I had a friend group that knew me since I was a kid, and I wish I stuck with that. I wish I went to like a school in Michigan and
Yeah.
like kept it simple and like, and I think like lived a more conventional life, and like because like a lot of the majority of the people that I still know, like they have that. And
Yeah.
um versus like my oldest friend is someone maybe I met in college or maybe post college. And I think now looking back at it, it's like these experiences have really helped me. And like the way you're saying, they have shaped me into the person that I am today. And I think for example, as a designer, like you become a better designer and a better visual visual communicator if you know the subject matter that you're working with. So
Hmm.
if I have a startup client that I know the business, I'm familiar with the business side of it, or if it's like a nonprofit in housing, like I know some of the concepts because I studied that in college. So I
Right.
find myself pulling from different like you said experiences and jobs or roles or whatever it is that I had, and it's helped me today. And I'm starting to realize it, and I'm okay with it now. I think I've
Yeah.
accepted that.
No, that's really cool, man. I think you're a pretty awesome dude. So we're gonna wrap this up. I want you to tell me what are you
Yeah.
excited about working on, man? Like what are you excited about right now that you're working on?
Yeah, I can actually just show you. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but
Yeah.
a lot of the art that I make, the subject matter is focused on like my time in Shanghai and growing up. And so this is a painting about me and my brother moving to Shanghai.
Mm.
It's in a style I like, and it's with big colors, and I want it to be a little bit more surreal. But um, I outside of work, I like to I want to express myself visually, and so this is the one piece that I'm making, and then the second piece that's still in progress. So I think this podcast will be a window into this work in progress piece. Is this piece about um
Right.
the companion piece about Detroit, and
Yeah.
so um I got the skyline in there because obviously I love architecture, I love buildings growing up, and it's been cool to work with Anthony and you were there at the art studio to see kind of how I'm developing my own style and
Yeah.
taking in other perspectives and performing my own through it. So that's what I'm working on, and that's something that I'm excited about. Just doing on my own, and hopefully eventually making it to a gallery or like getting some kind of like like publicizing it in some way. So
Yeah.
that'll come later once this is complete. So yeah.
No, that's what's up, man. So what does that do for you? Like, does that replenish you? Like when you go to work, you're
Uh-huh.
working on a project, you're working on a design project, but then you
Yeah.
come home and then you're working on like your own pieces, your own expression
Yeah.
of, like how to, does that help to rejuvenate you to go back to work or, what is that? What is that feeling like?
It's I mean it's just a hump you have to overcome. So yes, but
Yeah.
it takes so much more effort to work on your own stuff, your own passion project or your own pursuits outside of the work you're required to do.
Yeah.
And so like once I finish for if I paint for an hour and a half, 2 hours, then I'm like, yeah, I feel great about it. And I
Yeah.
feel like I've made progress on not only developing my own style, but also like taking steps towards achieving my own goals.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's like it's so easy to just play COD and just like
Yeah.
watch basketball or just
Yeah.
like do nothing. And there are days for that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I'm sure for you, like if you have a late night interview, like
Yeah.
that takes more work, man, than not doing it and just
Right.
chilling.
A West Coast interview, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Jason, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, man. This has been awesome, and it's also been awesome for me just getting to know you a lot better. So, I'll be in touch, and I really thank you for sharing your story with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah,
All
you
right,
helped me reflect on my own life too. So thank you. Thanks, Derek. This is a
no,
great time.
I really appreciate it, man. So this has been another episode of the Immigrant Education Collaborative Podcast. See you next time.